We've got something special going on. I don't think Jason Story is with us, but he may show up in a little bit. But I do have Alexander and Tamara with me to talk about the Ukraine Winter Game Jam and review some of the best games that came out of that game jam. And we'll talk a little bit about a couple other interesting topics and take some questions at the end. In fact, if you've got questions, you can feel free to drop them in right now. And if I see any that look good or anybody sees something that looks cool, we'll mark it for later and we'll try to answer those as quick as possible. Before we get started, if you haven't subscribed to Tamara's channel already, make sure that you do. I don't know if I have a link in the description yet, but I'm going to put one there. Search for Tamara Makes Games on YouTube, though you'll find it. Hit the little subscribe button and the bell. So let's get started. Welcome. I'm going to let you two both say hello, and I'm going to make us a little bit bigger so we don't look like giant heads.
Great. Hello, everyone.
And then, Tamara, you want to tell everybody real quick what your YouTube channel is before we start? Just
okay,
what it is
so
that you talk about. So, I mean, makes games sounds kind of obvious, but maybe tell a little more.
yeah. Well, I used to make a lot of tutorials about grid building systems and also isometric games because that was my passion for a long time. And I also started making devlogs about my projects. So that's mostly what my channel is about. You can subscribe, check it out. I actually took a little bit of a break from it, but I'm so ready to get back to it. So stay tuned.
Yeah, definitely go get subscribed and get ready for some more of those videos. Looks like a couple people here are already subscribed and watching your videos, doing some isometric tile building stuff. Exactly what you're talking about. So before we, actually, Alexander, can you just tell everybody a little bit about yourself before we start? And then I want to show a quick video that James sent me.
Yeah, sure. So I work for this small game dev company in Ukraine, Starny Games. And we've been working on historic strategy games on the Strategic Mind series that you can see on Steam, like showing World War II from different perspectives. And when the war started, we developed and published Ukraine War Stories, a set of visual novels about civilians in the first weeks of the war. Which is a very serious topic. So it's a fully free game. You can get it for free on Steam, and it's like a charity project. We don't get any profits from that. And yeah, and we keep working despite the war going on in Ukraine right now. We keep working from our office in Kiev, and we now work on some further projects. So we have one more Strategic Mind game coming up, which is like Strategic Mind Spirit of Liberty about Finland in World War II, which is in many ways similar to what's going on in Ukraine right now. And also another tactical game about World War II, which is Headquarters World War II. So it's a bit ironic that company which is making like games about war and doing them in the middle of the war. But yeah, so I guess
that is definitely very, very much so. I can't imagine the stress of trying to do that too. That's like I struggle enough in a perfectly calm environment. So can you tell everybody real quick one more time what the name of the game was, so in case they missed it, so they can go back and grab it on Steam?
Yeah, so first of all, it's Ukraine War Stories. Is the free game about civilians during right after the Russia invasion of Ukraine, and some of our other games are Strategic Mind series on Steam about World War II, and Headquarters World War II, which is a coming up game about World War II as well.
All right, so I'll have to link those both in the description and in chat in just a minute. I wanted to really quickly thank James, though, for kind of bringing this all up and sharing it with everybody and kind of get.
One of the reasons that we did the Ukrainian
and
Winter Game Jam.
Here's the
is to
video.
honor Ukrainian
I'm going to let
game
this
devs.
play real quick.
There are thousands.
Try not to get sad.
Game devs in Ukraine.
I'm going to mute myself while it plays and put those links in.
Small game dev studios, and others as solo game devs. And of course, there's many who are working hard to become game devs, developing their skills. And they're doing this despite the fact that Ukraine is suffering from a terrible war. The Russian invasion has killed many people, destroyed so much of the country, cut electricity. So being a game dev in Ukraine is a whole lot harder than being one in a lot of the other countries where game devs generally are found. So, two of the game devs that we're honoring here today, who, by the way, represent many thousands of other game devs, who are also working hard to support themselves, to defend their families, to help win the war and such. Two of them are on our live stream today. Alexander Sinan, he's the COO of Starny Games, and Starny Games has been doing military simulation games for a long time. But Alexander also, when the game began, started looking closely at what he and the company could do to raise awareness of what's going on in Ukraine, support Ukraine projects of various kinds. Here's an example of him speaking at a games gathering conference in Bratislava last October. And he spoke on developing a game about the war around us. I should say also that at a previous games gathering, he spoke about how artillery and rocket attacks affect the productivity of a video game studio. And he shared a lot of details about exactly that. So you might look for that at the Games Gathering conference that occurred prior to this one. And of course, look for the Developing a Game About the War Around Us video as well. They're both well worth watching. So Alexander has been supporting Ukraine projects, trying to raise awareness, taking care of his family, keeping the studio going, and basically following his dream of being a successful game dev. And I would honor Alexander Sinan here. Tamara is a young Ukrainian game dev, and she has been living in Ukraine her whole life. When the war started, she was in Kyiv, and for the first weeks and so of the war, she was the front line. So Tamara, living in her apartment, had to figure out where in the apartment was the safest if an artillery shell hit the building, which the fact is interior rooms. And the interior rooms in her apartment were the hallway and the bathroom. So her whole family, including her grandmother, spent weeks and weeks and weeks in those spaces in fear of having an artillery shell hit the building. And at the same time as she was in there, she was also pursuing her university courses in computer science and game development, and also in that hallway working on game tutorials for her Tamara Makes Games YouTube channel, which is well worth watching. And by the way, this Warzone devlog here is one of the videos well worth watching on that channel, along with another one called Ukraine War. So I got to say that Tamara has really worked hard and persevered, and I am going to honor her here for sticking with it and continuing to follow her dream despite the war. And then, of course, there's this whole group of kids, ranging in ages from 11 to 16. They're the Martian Teapots group, and they're in Sumy, which is in northeastern Ukraine, and had been for many months right near the front line of the battles, and was being routinely shelled and rocketed. Despite that, the group, with the support of Ilya, their game dev advisor from Sumy State University, they continued working on developing games of their own, increasing their game dev skills. In fact, this last summer, again, despite the war and all the disruptions, they released a wonderful game on Steam called Crash is Fun. Check it out on Steam. It's a great game, high positive ratings, and go buy it and support Martian Teapots and all the dreams of these kids to be game devs and make a living at it, and I guess you could say live the dream. Unfortunately, not everybody's dreams are going to be fulfilled in this war, and some dreams have already been snuffed out.
Сталося так, що ми відправилися в гарячу точку під Бахмут. І оці 4 села, Клічіївка, Кордьонівка, Озарянівка, Андріївка, які постійно звідти привозять людей. На жаль, вже не живих. Це той нещасний квадрат, в якому ми донині. Там просто кепсько, окопатися особливо ніде, тому що земля дуже тверда. І хлопці працюють для того, щоб окопатися не лопатками, а сокирами.
Я пришел на стратегии, а он еще и сталкер делал. Старкрафтом все вместе играли. У нас была команда киевская по Старкрафту. Мы часто с ним встречались на разного рода киберспортивных мероприятиях. Вот. И, собственно, тогда уже Старкрафт шел на убыль, и многие люди так уже редко приходили на подобного рода мероприятия, но тут произошло событие. Разработчик киевский, GameDev Game World, они искали себе тестировщиков для своих игр. Вот, и они приглашали киберспортсменов. И вот так вот Фреш, я, еще много-много ребят попало на свою первую работу.
Він безмежно любив Україну. Я знала ще до початку війни, що він піде на фронт. Я знала, що він поїде. Я готувалася до цього, але до цього неможливо бути готовим. Він завжди казав, що він створює нові світи. Він був геймдизайнером. Ви всі знаєте про сталкера, про козаків. І він завжди казав, що я створюю нові світи. Написав зраночку 22 числа, перед тим, як ішов на вихід. Написав, що він йде, що мене обіймає. Я написала йому, що дуже люблю його і чекаю, коли він повернеться і відповість мені. Тобто він завжди писав, що я скоро буду. І я чекала, що він повернеться і відповість. Я б сказала, що я досі його чекаю.
So, give me a moment. That video always chokes me up. So our group is working on various Ukraine projects, and one of them is game jams that raise awareness about Ukraine, get people involved in helping Ukraine, and we are doing another game jam, Ukraine themed, called Ukraine War, that's starting on July 28th. And we're looking for people, of course, who are willing to help out with it, promote it, perhaps donate prizes, contribute their skills in social media, and whatever skills you think you have that might be relevant, please feel free to contact me. And also, if you're interested in getting involved in worthy Ukraine projects, you can contact me at james@lovebirdlab.com, and I'll point you at various projects, including some of our own. So I very much hope that you found this honoring Ukrainian game devs video inspiring, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the Ukraine winter live stream. Thank you for watching.
All right. Hopefully, nobody cried. When I watched the first time, I got really sad. I don't want to start it off too sad, but I want to make sure that everybody saw and knows what's going on and has at least some idea. And hopefully that wasn't too embarrassing seeing yourself up there. I know. Yeah, I can't take it when people talk about me. It always makes me feel weird. So today we've got some games to review. There was the game jam, and we've got the results from the voting, and the top 4 are right here, but we're going to actually go through, talk a little bit about each of the games, and play I think a quick gameplay video of them while we talk about them, ideally. I want to start with 4th place, which is the only one of these that I didn't play, and I remember why I didn't play it now. After checking out the demo again, it's because it didn't work in my resolution. It didn't work at the weird aspect ratio of my monitor. It was all weird, and it stretched out. So let's pop up the video of that one, and that game was called Road to Sanctuary. So, I assume you both played it quite a bit and
Yeah.
had no problems with
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I've played it and I've enjoyed the gameplay aspect. I think the graphics are not so excellent, but maybe for a game jam. And I couldn't actually like finish like the objective because there was one issue like with so sometimes, as I understood it, sometimes the enemies could spawn outside of the playing field, and then you cannot kill them, so you cannot like finish them sometimes. So I couldn't get through that, but otherwise I played it, and it at first it didn't like look all that promising, but you know when you actually get to play it, it's uh, I think it's different one. Are we?
It definitely looks different than what I was expecting from the intro and stuff. For
Oh,
some
it's.
reason,
I
I thought
think
it was a
it's.
racing game.
I think we are. I messed up the video, so I think we need another one.
Sorry, what was that?
Yeah. I think we need another video to play.
Is the video not
No, the
playing for
Road to
you?
Sanctuary, it's
Ah, okay. Sorry. Then sorry, it's my bad. Okay.
Is this not the right one?
No, maybe it's
I
my bad.
I think it is the right one.
Ah, okay. Sorry then.
Yeah.
My bad.
So I also played the game. It was a little bit too hard for me, but that's probably because I'm like really bad at keyboard controls. So I was actually recently going through all the gameplay videos and just reviewing all the games before this stream. And I think this game was underappreciated by me because it was hard for me to use the keyboard. I usually play on controller such games, so I didn't get far, but I think it's a pretty good game. I think everything looks really polished, and it actually reminded me of the game that I'm currently playing. It's called Dying Light, so it also has zombies and also different kinds of zombies. So this one felt kind of similar to it.
Yeah, this looks really a lot cooler than I had expected. So I wish I would have gotten a chance to try this one. I guess that's a quick lesson for anybody making a game for game jams. Make sure it
Yeah, I
works for
mean
the live
it's
stream, too.
yeah, I mean it seems like a quite solid like top-down shooter, so there is a potential to maybe, you know, spend some more time and develop it into a more like final project, but it's already played, like the gameplay is there, so like you could play there and you could experiment with different weapons and different like extra abilities and everything, so
Nice. What was did this game have an endpoint? Like I said, it's the one I didn't actually get to play, but did it have an ending to it, or just kind of leveling up and grabbing as many weapons and upgrades as possible?
Well, I didn't get to the ending.
yeah, maybe we are
but
not
from what
so
I can...
good at this game.
Yeah.
To be sure.
Yeah, I think it's one
I
of those
did.
games that take a little bit of skill to play because the zombies are like coming at you constantly, and you have to like be really quick with the shooting and running.
Yeah, oh, that's a neat effect too, with the cone right there for visibility.
Yeah.
The
I think
masking of that.
there were a couple of games that used this element of like seeing in the dark and lightning. Well, I think one of the other games we are gonna review today has this element
Yeah, I
as
think
well,
all
but I
top
think it
games
works
use
really
this
well.
use this trick.
They all did something interesting with light. And what was the theme again of the jam? It was something related to that, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Fighting in the cold and dark.
That's right. And I'm just
Living
curious,
in fighting
anybody
in the
have a
cold and dark.
guess on how this effect was done? The cone visuals and making stuff only visible when it's in the cone?
No, I'm actually. If you're talking about the second game, like To the Light, it was. I'm actually really curious about how it was done, because it's such an interesting mechanic.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting light-based mechanics here. Let me scroll through and see if there was anything else different. Yeah, I like that. And then maybe we'll go on to let's go on to the next one, if that's okay. Do you guys have anything else to say about this one? Road to Sanctuary.
Well, you
first
asked
place winner?
you about the endpoint, and I didn't get to the endpoint, but I watched the video till the end, and yeah, you can collect all the parts of the car, and you actually get to escape. So that's basically the endpoint. And I
Oh,
think it's like a nice ending for such a game. So you have to escape all the zombies. There is also like a day and night cycle. So as you can see, it switches from night to day. So I think it was a really good game.
and you can actually win, huh? You don't just go until you die. Here he goes. He's gonna make it to the car and get away. You have escaped.
Oh, you escaped! Yay!
Very cool. All right, let's pop up the third place winner. And in third place, it was the Matchstick, correct?
And just one quick thought on the previous game. So I think it probably got a bit underappreciated by myself because I'm not that much into this genre, but I was trying to judge just on what the game is, not what the genre is. And I think for game jam it's really important, to get the game in some quite, like, I wouldn't say final state, but when you can get some chunk of gameplay that's playable and that can be finished. So I guess it's really important that you not just, run around and kill zombies, but there is some like objectives and some small part of the game that you can complete. So it feels like more like a final game rather than just a quick game jam submission. So I think good job on like finishing this part of the gameplay and this short story about trying to escape this like dangerous environment, let's say.
Oh yeah, I think it's nice. It's all polished up and it's like a full story. Like Tamara said, you got day and night cycles running around and you actually grabbing all of the parts of the car. When I first saw it, I thought it was a racing game where I was going to be driving, but then I couldn't actually play it. I was like, oh.
Yeah, me too, actually.
To try on a different system. I guess it's also my fault. I should just get a second monitor. But even I couldn't get it to work windowed or full screen. It was driving me nuts. All right, let's go on to the Matchstick, which was the third place one I did play. I'm gonna turn the sound off, and we can just kind of talk about it. I remember it had a decent amount of intro text here, and then, bam, you're just there in the dark, and you can't really see much at all. Did you guys, I assume, both like this game quite a bit? This was my second place favorite out of all the games.
Yeah, it's really cool game, but I felt like it was probably too hardcore for me. I am not a big on 2D platformers, and I was trying my best to finish every game in the jam. So I've spent quite a while trying to complete this one, and I was keep failing miserably. So I did progress quite far, but I felt that it was a bit too hard on me. But overall, I think especially for people who play this genre a bit more, it's probably quite well balanced and well done. So yeah, and it's really interesting how just this light feature can totally change the way the game is played. So yeah, I think that's a really nice project.
Do you want to explain what they're doing there with the light, why it's getting dark and bright over and over?
Yeah, so basically you have only a small area around you where you can see, and to use the light, you have unlimited number of times you could use a light, like candle, but you have to stop and you cannot move while you do so. So you have to stop, look around, and then keep going in the dark. So it's tricky because here you can misjudge the distance or something because of this dark, or you might not remember correctly where something is. And so you keep using light and looking around, but it becomes much trickier. So for example, some easy level with normal light could become much more difficult to complete when you have to stop and use the light all the time and trying to remember what was ahead of you. So yeah, it makes something tricky, and it's also quite intimidating, like jumping in the dark like this. So, like you're, keep worrying that you've probably misjudged the distance or something, or that you're doing some mistake. But then you see that you were correct or something. So, I guess that's interesting twist to this
Yeah, I
type
feel
of
like it
games.
makes it more exciting when you actually make the jump. You're like, oh, I actually made it.
Yeah.
It's like you can't tell
Yeah.
until your character stops moving. Like, oh, well, I did
Mhm.
land there, right? I
And
didn't miss
also,
it.
I really liked the like here we can see like green and red indicators, so you can see those in the dark, but not something else. So I think this is also a cool idea where you can see some objects that are emitting light and like indicators like this, but you also have to have like good timing to avoid being killed by those things. So yeah, so I think there are some really cool ideas to play around with, and I like when people not just use this idea with light and forget about it, but when they keep piling up other mechanics on top of that that are like synergized with it. Like for example here with these indicators and everything. So I think it all works quite well together.
Yeah, I thought it was really, really well polished. And my favorite part was that I felt like it was another one of the games where I just felt like I was getting better, where,
Yeah.
my skill mattered. And the second time I played, I was a little bit better. Third time, I was a little bit better. And I started to kind of easily grow into it. And it was a lot of fun and very, very challenging stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really challenging for me too. I'm bad at platformers, that's the truth. But I really enjoyed this game because it's such a cool mechanic. Like you have to turn on the light and then remember all this stuff. So you're like basically training your memory. And the story in this game actually goes like you have a matchstick and you can't run with it because obviously if you run, the wind is gonna die down your matchstick. So it was really cool. Also, another thing that I liked is if you fall and die, the character says like, "Oh, that couldn't have happened. It's just all my imagination." And I've seen this trick used in another game, Lost in Random, where when you die, the narrator says, "Oh, it couldn't have happened." So it was like really nice touch. I think the graphics are fitting in this game. I'm not usually a fan of pixel art, but in this case, it was like a good choice, I'd say. Also, like all the different obstacles that you have to overcome. The flashing platforms are really cool. Again, I discovered this only when I was watching the gameplay video because when I was playing, I couldn't get far. And I also thought that the candles were like checkpoints. I guess they're not because after I reached one of the candles, I died, and then I was like, at the beginning of the level, I was like, what?
Yeah. Yeah, I've completed a couple of levels. I think I've went to this point we are seeing in the video, but then I failed somewhere later down the road. So, uh, but yeah, I think I think this game is good in terms of like all the elements are quite finished and well put together. So we have like solid gameplay, some interesting ideas, like well put together graphics. We have like music. So I think like all aspects of the game are really well done, and they work together, and it's really a good job for a game jam where you don't have much time, and some devs tend to focus on some aspects they're like best at or which works better for them, and like neglect some other aspects of the game. But here we can see that like as far as I can tell, like all aspects of the game are quite well done. So I think it's a really solid submission and good job on making it into top 3.
Actually, one thing that I would like to add to this game is sound effects. The ambient, I believe it was like a sound
There was
wind or
classical
something.
music, but music is nice.
I think I would add like sounds of water. There was like a pond
uh,
near water. So some sound
Sorry.
light, and then maybe when the spikes go up and from there, it's just like a little sound. It's just like that.
I think your microphone's cutting out
Yeah,
for
I cannot hear you
I
well
don't know
for
why.
the last half of minute.
Oh,
Yeah,
You're good
now it's
now.
better.
No, it was just well, I don't think it was you. I
Yeah.
think it was the system.
okay.
Uh,
I
Yeah.
hope it's working.
Yes, so
Yeah, no,
I've
it sounds
also
totally
felt that the ambience of like the wind was a bit like annoying and repetitive. So, but we've also run into this problem when we had like a game featuring like winter operations and something. We had the ambient of like snow and wind and everything, and it was also like getting on everyone's nerves. So like
How did
it's
you solve
tricky.
that problem?
Well, I think we didn't, but but I think you just I think for a game jam is totally fine. I think if you're talking about some like full products that are being sold on market, it's tricky task for sound designer who's working on the project, or for like if you're solo dev, then for you. But I would probably try to make it more quiet, and maybe I would suggest like so that it goes like it becomes almost non-existent or very quiet for a period, and then it becomes a bit louder, and then it goes away. So it's like coming back and forth, and it's not like all the time on one level because it's quickly getting annoying and stuff like that. So I guess we just did it like not so loud and maybe larger periods of time between those parts. So yeah, I would recommend something like that. But I mean, I think there are probably different ways to deal with this issue. But yeah, but here it's nice. It's still it works for the atmosphere, and I like the overall approach to the music and sound in this one.
Yeah, I didn't get anywhere near this far. Watching the
Yeah,
video,
yeah.
looking at this, like I struggle. I got maybe halfway through this video. Not
Yeah.
up to here. I really like this thing though. I don't remember. This might have actually been my number one vote. I can't remember if it was my number one or two, but I really enjoyed just the game in general. I think that it could definitely turn into like a full on game. I
Yeah.
don't know what I would do with the art style. I kind of like it, but I feel like you could use that mechanic in a bunch of art styles and come up with all kinds of cool stuff. I also feel like whoever made this definitely has some experience with platformers because they did an amazing job of making it look and feel good and put in tons and tons of content. They've definitely got that system down. So I'm kind of
Yeah.
curious
Yeah.
to see what they build and actually release, what the final game looks like.
Yeah, that's really good job, and yeah, I've also had high ratings for this one. So
Anything else on this game, or should we move on to second place?
well, I think it's a great game, and it's really solid in all aspects, and good job on this game jam and this submission, and I hope it can be developed into a full game one day and be successful. So good luck with further development, I guess.
Yeah, I have no doubt that this thing could be made into a full game. Like with how much they've done in this short of a time, like I'm very confident that this will be something out on Steam sometime soon.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, well, let's go on to another very cool game that I think this is the other one that I can't remember which one of these was my number one and number two. It was either this one or the previous one for my votes. And this was called To the Light, which took the light mechanics, I think, to another level and did something slightly different. I'm going to mute the sound as well again, so we don't have to hear the background music. But you can see. Everybody watching can kind of see what's going on. You walk around with your character and around the light. Anyway, I'll let somebody else explain it. Go ahead.
Yeah, so basically you can either as the game says at the very start, only something you see exists, So you can like try to avoid obstacles by not having them lightened on your screen. So if they are not, if you cannot see them, they don't exist. So for example, you could drop light and go around some obstacles and stuff like that. And so it has lots of puzzles based around that basically. So you
Yeah,
could
like
either
the
work
ground
without the
doesn't
light
exist
or
if
with
there's no
light.
light
Yeah.
on it, and you fall right through like they're doing. There. There's like 5. How many, real quick, how many tries did it take you guys to beat the first level there? Because that's about how many it took me, like 5 or 6 times falling through before I was like, oh, okay, I get
Yeah.
it.
I don't know. I think I've got into it quite quickly, and I think there's quite a lot of levels. So I don't actually remember exactly if I finished it or not, but I remember completing lots of levels. So it's really nice, I think so. And it's really interesting how like you could build lots of puzzles and interesting like problems around just a couple of mechanics. So you know, like here, for example, we can see the player trying like various things. Like it's really interesting when it starts, like when you use the light like dropping ahead of you or like rolling ahead of you, and you try to get around that and stuff like that. So there are a lot of interesting combinations with that, which we are probably gonna see in the video right now. And yeah, and I like how the levels are quite short. So like you get this puzzle in chunks, and you don't get one huge complex level that you cannot finish and get depressed, but instead you like, you know, eat them piecemeal, like one by one, and it's really really helps you get through and learn all the mechanics, and you know, and you feel encouraged by completing every level. So I think that was well done in terms of like choosing how like much content there should be in each level and stuff like that.
Yeah, I thought they did a really good job of kind of easing you into all of the mechanics. I think it shows really well in the video here, which is literally just a playthrough. But it's like you see the ball roll, doesn't really matter. You see the ball roll, and you got to kind of follow it. Then you got to guide the ball, and you start to. They build up on the mechanics really well. I feel like that was probably. I don't know for sure, but my guess is that designing the levels was probably harder and more complicated than designing the code for it, right? It was probably like, I know how to do the code part, now I got to come up with the hard. At least for me, that would be the hard part, is like coming up with levels that actually teach these things well, and they seem like they did a great job of that.
Yeah, I think there is a nice balance of how levels progress. Like, so you don't get just like a super hard level at the beginning. You just like figuring out and still falling a lot. But it was like pretty interesting. Also, something that I would like to play in the future. I think I read in the comments that the developer plans to add more lights, more types of lights. So we currently have like static lights and then these rolling balls. I think it would be really cool to see like a variety of lights. So I think this could be like a great game, like a
Yeah, like a nice
really
puzzle
commercial
game.
game maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a really good idea for a puzzle game, and it really works. Like what you can already tell this, even like from the game in this stage of development, it's really cool, and it has a lot of creative ideas. So yeah, I think it's a great game, and I had really lots of fun playing it, and I think that's the most important for every game. So.
Yeah, I had fun with this one too. I think it's really interesting. I'm really curious to see too if the same mechanic or idea could be applied in 3D somehow, like where you've got some object that just makes stuff disappear. It might be terrible, but I'm just curious what it would look like in 3D.
I don't see why not, but I also can see that this games works well in 2D, so I think both could work, but this one is already good in 2D, so
Or straight in 2D. I'm just curious if there's a 3D version of it, what that could look like too.
I think I've seen a game that utilizes shadows. So, like, basically, you have a 3D world and you can move stuff around, but then the camera shifts and you get a 2D view of the shadows, of like of that room, and then you kind of jump on the shadows. So, I think that's like the 3D version that you're talking about.
Interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember the name of the game.
If you
I'm
remember
sorry,
it, you'll
I
have to
just
let
saw
me
it
know. I'll
like
have to check
once.
that out. But yeah, I had fun with
Sure.
this one. A lot of fun with it. I also didn't get quite this far. I like platformers, but I'm not that good at them. I like to play them, and then I play until I can't beat them anymore. Then I get irritated, and then I go back to play them again a little bit later. But I never really get good enough
Yeah.
to beat most of them.
Yeah, but yes, this one is really interesting, and yeah, one like the previous project as well. I think basically all the projects that are in top rated in this game jam are basically like one of the reasons why they won the competition is because they had all aspects of the game done like quite well. So, because there were some other projects which could be interesting in their way, but some aspects of the game were lacking or not done well enough. But here we can see that all aspects, once again, as I've said, visuals, sound, gameplay, mechanics, idea for the game, all coming together and all being done quite nicely. So really good job to the developer or developers of this game, and uh, wish them all the best and success with their future projects or with this one if they want to develop it further. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, I
I
really
think
like
all
it.
the games that
Go ahead.
that have won had some kind of creative way of utilizing this light and darkness mechanics. So I noticed this in all of the games that have like top ratings.
Yeah, that's what stood out for me too, was the cool use of the light. I'm curious if either of you have an idea of how they accomplish this mechanic though, where they make the collisions for the objects. And I mean, the lighting for the objects is pretty easy, but making the collisions for the objects not happen as they're not lit. You guys have thoughts on how that might be accomplished or random ideas for it? I'm not sure.
Well, I actually have a spoiler because I read the comments
Oh, okay.
when the developer replied. But you can take your guesses.
I'm at a loss right now. Nothing's coming to mind. It's a little early for me.
So they actually had divided their platforms into little chunks and then enabled them as the from what
Radius.
I could understand, like the yeah. So something like that.
Nice and simple. It's always easier than you expect. Like simply.
No, but it's. I don't think it's like it. It may be easy, but I don't think it's not. It's so easy to make it, work well in a game. Like there could be lots of issues, I think, or like bugs or something with it. So really good job on figuring that out. Because when I've played, I didn't actually like encounter any issues or any problems with it, despite it being quite interesting implementation. So good
No, I
job
think
to
it
the
works
team.
great, and it's I'm a big fan of like using the simple implementation that just works and gets the job done, and not overcomplicating the crap out of it. And that like seems like a perfect one because you
Yeah.
just look at the cubes that are within that radius and then enable them, and
Yeah.
you don't have too many of them. It fits perfect within the use case of the game. There's no reason to make it more
Yeah,
complicated.
yeah, and to be honest, when I first saw this idea, I was like, oh yeah, it looks cool, but isn't there like any bugs or issues where you could be like stuck in the wall or something because of that? So at first I was a bit worried, but I actually didn't see any issues throughout my playthrough, so really well done in terms of like technical realization of this idea.
Yeah, that is very cool. I just love seeing like how people do these things too, and come up with solutions to a lot of these problems. I've seen it in a lot of games. A lot of time you think it's like some really complex, crazy thing, and like, oh no, we actually just found a nice, easy way to do it. Just put in this little bit of code or this little object here. I've seen that quite a bit, where I expect something's going to be way too complicated to understand, and it's just like, oh, just a smart use of something that already exists and that I already know how to do. This one was really
I
cool.
think it's my favorite part of game dev, just figuring out how stuff can be done, or like looking at mechanics that have already been developed and then just guessing how the developers did it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely an awesome process. Well, yeah, congrats for second place to the
yeah.
light. Anybody
And
got final words on it?
it's always good to say, oh no, it was so easy and so simple when the game is done, but it's much more difficult to come up with this idea and realize that it's a good one, and to follow up and make a game about it. So yeah.
Oh yeah,
Well,
no, coming up with the idea and thinking of setting it up like that and making it actually work is the hard part. Yeah, it's just
Yeah, for
interesting
sure.
because I think a lot of time like you see something like this and think
Yeah.
like it
Oh, it's
requires
really
like a
easy, yeah.
PhD in math or something to figure out how to get it to work, and I just got to know how to use the engine well.
Yeah.
It's very cool. All right, should we go on to the first place winner?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is, gotta get my video linked up. Music. Reckless
In the
Onslaught.
Second Age, the lands of Soteria were lush and bountiful. The people lived there in peace and happiness. Then came the scourge from the east. A darkness enveloped them. An evil which respected no boundaries descended upon Soteria, recklessly killing its people and destroying its land. In desperation, the people of Soteria fled west into the sunless
Okay, I'm
tundras.
gonna mute the sword fight.
Yeah, well, I have to say this is like the only game that has like a cinematic intro and a voiceover.
Yes,
All
I
these
actually really
submissions.
enjoyed it. It's just the sword
Yeah.
clinking. Oh yeah. This
Yeah.
one was really cool, and it was very complicated. It felt like there was a lot to the game.
Yeah, I think it's a good setup. I would say it's like a nice strategy game in its early stages. So it had like just a few key mechanics, but they've worked well and well put together. I don't know, have anyone? I think the second resource in this one is not. So we have like wood, food, and stone, or like iron, I think. So did anyone manage to get that? Because I don't think it's in the game actually.
Oh no, I haven't seen the stone. But I probably just didn't get too far, or maybe they didn't.
Yeah,
add
because
it
I was
in the
trying, because you
version.
need that to build like more powerful troops, and I couldn't get that, but it's probably not in the game because I searched all the map and couldn't find it. So I don't know. Maybe we will see in this video if they use it or not. But yeah, apart of that, I think it's really nice. It's a good like you know like a good chunk of the game, which is like can be played on its own. It's not too long because I think you can right now you can just build the lumber mill, get some lumber, then build some more. Basically, you build farms and houses, and you need basically food to support your population and houses to house them. And if you have enough food and enough houses, new people come. So it's I've saw this mechanic. I've seen this mechanic in Stronghold series. If we talk about like RTS titles, maybe in some other games as well. And basically, it's like nicely put together. So there are some mechanics similar to Stronghold where you use the actual population like to build up your troops. So and like they come to you if you have enough food and shelter for them. So here you also like you need to build up farms, build up housing, get more people to come to you basically, and then you can use them to build more stuff or to make them warriors. And basically, yeah, but to build more powerful troops, you need this another resource, which I couldn't find. It's probably not in the build I've played, but otherwise it's really solid. And then there are at some point the enemy starts attacking your village basically, and you need to like build enough troops to repel them, and the attacks are getting more and more powerful, so you need to get ahead of them. So yeah, that's basically the quick summary of the project.
Yeah, this one was for me. It was fun because I love RTSs. It's like my favorite type of game. Card games and RTS games are like by far my favorite. I was having a lot of fun with it, but I was a little disappointed when I kind of ran out of things to do somewhat
Yeah.
quick.
Yeah.
So I liked that, you know, it was a strategy game. I could go build and do my kind of core stuff, but I wanted to be able to do, I guess, a little bit more. That's why for
More.
me, this was my number 3. So I know it got first place. I think because it really did kind of hit on a lot of the things that, like you mentioned, there was that nice intro right at the beginning. It's got good audio throughout the whole thing, and it feels like kind of a really polished up game, just like the first bit of it. Like it's still missing the next bit of content. But I had a lot of fun with it, and I love RTS games, so it's just like a default. It's going to be in my top my top set, just for being a strategy game that's put together and plays well.
Yeah, I think it also has like
Yeah.
a nice UI. Please, Tamara, go.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, like from the first moments, you get this really professional voiceover, and it's what really impressed me because, well, as a player, I sometimes don't like to read so the dialogue. So it was like, wow, wow effect. And then I also like city builders, so it was a cool mechanic for me. I also want to mention that you can only build where the light touches, and I think it was such a cool take on this territory expansion mechanic. So I did develop a few like city builders, and they almost every time have this territory expansion mechanic, and I think it was such a cool take on this mechanic to just like allow the light to be that boundary.
Yeah.
And also, we're talking about UI. I'm really amazed by the icons. They're looking so good.
Yeah, I think that overall, like, great job, and I agree with Jason that there is very few content, so you could basically play in 10 minutes or maybe like 10 to 30 minutes of what's there right now. But I would say that it's probably the right approach for the game jam, because I think it's better to present a small chunk of the game which is like polished and playable and works well and has all the elements work together, rather than try to do like a large variety of buildings, troops, resources, and then just not make all the assets and the UI and all the rest in time. So I think it's a really nice trait for any like game dev or dev team, that they can set like the realistic scope and scale for their project, and you have to prioritize something. So there could have been more content, but then probably we would miss out on something else, like maybe some polish or some stability or some UI elements or something. So I think overall it was the right call, and they did really like approach this in a really I would say a professional way, by choosing like what they really could do in the time submitted in time for the game jam competition. So good job on that, and that's probably one of the reasons the game won the game jam.
Oh yeah, no, it makes sense. It's probably one of the reasons that you never see, or very rarely see, RTSs in game jams too, is there's so much that you've got to do just to get the core of it, and then getting all the rest of the game actually up and putting in a ton of content, and then making that fun and fit into like a 5-minute, 10-minute play session is a lot of work. That's why I'm sure that's why it got so many high votes. Like I said, it was my number 3 out of all of them. So. Yeah, and the other ones were all great as well. So I can see how this one won. It's definitely an awesome game. It looks like James has appeared in the chat. I had a question before I ask though. I wanted to say if anybody in chat has questions, feel free to ask away, and we'll try to answer, take as many of them as possible. But I had a quick question for both of you about something that was in this video that was a conversation that I had yesterday. So right at the beginning, you mentioned the awesome voiceovers, how it's got like professionally voiceover and cinematics there. And yesterday, was it yesterday? Day before yesterday, I'm losing track of my days. Friday, while I was out at lunch with some other game developers, we were talking about voiceovers in games and AI and how it's drastically changed. They're building a big MMO, and I was asking them, like, what are you guys doing with AI and voiceover stuff? Are you like recording some, or are you just working on putting in a system that just automatically reads everything off and does it in the voices? You like runtime generation of this stuff? Like, what's the plan now? Because I personally see like there's zero excuse not to have voiceovers in your game. If it makes sense for your game to have them, there's no reason not to anymore, because you can basically generate them for free in a few minutes. It doesn't take that much work, depending on the amount of dialogue you have. But in a dialogue heavy game, I think there's even more value to it. So what are your thoughts on this stuff? Do you think it's gonna change? Like, should every game be doing this? I don't know. I feel like it's gonna change drastically. So
Yeah, well, I'm a bit skeptical at this point. Like, I think we are not quite there yet. So I would say for some characters where it doesn't really matter, like which could sound a bit robotic or a bit unnatural for some reason, like they are robots or they don't know language well or something, it could work. But if we are talking about, I don't think I think it's getting there. So maybe in a few years we will have that. But I just feel like at the moment, it's still not on the level of the professional voiceover, but of course it's much more cost efficient. And for example, our studio, like we don't have large budgets, so we've struggled with voiceover, but we still did it. So it was not the same quality as in AAA games because we had to, try to save the budget and, we couldn't have access to the voice actors, and but we still did it with like real actors, and we are right now doing it for Strategic Mind Spirit of Liberty, and it takes a lot of time and effort and resources to do it. So, but we have like historical figures, and we felt that we've experimented with artificial intelligence voiceover, and it's getting there, but it's just the feeling is it's just not there quite yet. So for a like AAA MMO project, it might feel like a bit cheap to use, but at the same time, I'm not sure like what's the setting of the game, what's the text or the characters they would be doing, and maybe if they use some, make some custom UI or use some more advanced AI, it could work. So I think it would get there in a few years, maybe, or I'm not sure like how many years is exactly needed, but at the moment I'm a little bit skeptical.
huh. Interesting. I'm
Yeah, well,
go ahead. I'm curious your thoughts.
I'm pretty much agreeing with Alexander. I think in this particular game, the voiceover was done with AI, but I have to ask the developer that.
I thought it was the developer. Maybe, or his friend, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, well, actually, I think it was AI because I watch a lot of short videos on YouTube, and there's this thing that came from TikTok. It's like automatic voiceover of the text, and it all just sounds like monotonous. You get all the different voices. You can have a woman, a man, or I don't know, like a squeaky voice or something else, but it all just like sounds linear, and that's the thing that wouldn't work in games. So for example here it was okay because it was just like a narrator telling the pre-story, but in a game with dialogues where you have to like show emotions and kind of like responses to certain actions, I think it wouldn't work as well.
Interesting. I don't know. I'm a little optimistic. I think that well, I should say it's pessimistic for voice actors. optimistic for developers. I feel like sometime within the next 6 months, there's just going to be some Unity plugin that just generates voices in any language and any context and tone. I don't know that it's true.
It would work very poorly for all languages except English, I think. Well, it couldn't plugin couldn't generate. I think some neural AI that's learned on some very large base, and the larger base and the longer time it learns, the better it works. So the less some language is used, the worse the neural network AI for it would be, or like because you need to spend a lot of resources to train it on that language, and it wouldn't be profitable for companies to do that for some languages that are not so widely used, basically. So they would probably be lagging behind English in that regard, but maybe we'll catch up at some point. Also, as Tamara said, there are problems with like stressing the correct like part of the sentence, and there are a lot of nuances that hard for AI to comprehend. And basically the tools we've tried, you could manually adjust, like sort of direct the AI, like which words should be stressed or which emotion it should use and so on. But it also takes a lot of manual effort. Like you need, instead of voiceover, so you could save up on the studio and you could do that on your PC, and you don't need a voice actor, but you still need to sort of voice director who is like overseeing every line and like correcting that. So I am more skeptical of runtime generation. It's probably going to take even longer to do that well. For like large projects, you could try to manually adjust that and like direct the AI. But once again, it also takes a lot of time to check all the lines and hint the AI like how to do it. And if it's not responding well to prompts, it would be a pain. So it could get really tricky with that. So it's really the question of quality you want to get. If you want to get some medium or like low to medium quality, then it would probably work even now. But if we are talking about like high quality, then I think it's a bit out of reach at this point.
Sure. Yeah, I wouldn't disagree there. I think that if you want like super high quality stuff, you're probably still going to have to kind of manually make that. But I guess part of the context of what I was thinking about is some of the guys I was talking to had worked on EverQuest 2 that spent like 30 or 50 million dollars on voice acting for all of the random content, like the quests and stuff. That it didn't. It was good that there was voice acting, but had that all been automated and like AI voice acting for the random go kill 12 rats quest, it probably would have had about the same value at a hundredth the cost, right? Nowadays. And I'm thinking that for that kind of stuff, for like your general game content that's not the primary character, like the main the main bad guys that you're fighting and stuff. That for that kind of stuff, you can really just generate or have it be all automated and automatic at runtime, so your designers can write the quests and stuff and just have voiceovers there and not have to go through a process where they no longer want to change the quest or they no longer want to change the content because now the voiceover won't match and they don't have a budget to change voiceovers. So now the content is stuck the way that it is or something like that. I feel like it's going to fix a lot of those problems. And with the languages, even though it's not going to be, it's obviously not going to be perfect in every language. It probably won't even be perfect in English. It's going to be better than what everybody has now, which is that nobody does voiceovers in any other language, right?
Yeah.
Like it'll still be,
Yeah.
it's a big step forward, I think, in that you'll be able to have like a voiceover, in your own language or in whatever feels natural, and hopefully it's it's better than what we have now.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I mean, there is always a big problem because, like, you either do a good voiceover or you don't do it at all, so that it doesn't feel like redundant to the game. So many devs would just opt out to just, not embarrass themselves with like cheap voiceover or something. Well, we choose the third path, is like do cheap voiceover and struggle with all the angry players saying our voiceover sucks. But basically, we still felt it's not that bad, and it's like better than not having a voiceover. But yeah, it's a tough choice to do all the time. So of course, having automated voiceovers is a really great tool for everyone. And yeah, you are correctly saying that changing voiceover would be much less problematic in future. But still, right now, yeah, like I think some like indie devs could be the first to take advantage of that, because for their projects probably the polish and like super high quality is not exactly what people expect. They expect some fun, interesting, and creative games, and if they have some voiceover, well, that's even better. For some bigger studios, like some large big budget games, it will probably come in later because they would be more worried about having the highest quality of everything and stuff like that. So for some of them, it might still be worth it to spend another 50 million on voiceover, instead of being blamed for, being like doing some AI voiceover and then being like uh, torn apart by the angry mob of the players.
But I feel like most of them probably don't have as insane of a voiceover budget.
Yeah.
That was one where like they wanted to
Mhm.
voice over every interaction with every NPC, and to do that at the time in the early 2000s meant you had to hire a ridiculous number of actors. Now I feel
Yeah.
like that can just be like a standard option almost. Like, NPCs read out their dialogue in, sounding like an orc or sounding like a whatever dragon that speaks English or whatever the hell it is.
Yeah.
Like they just have like a general set of generated voices that you can use for that kind of stuff for the kind of generic content. James had a question in chat I wanted to pop up too about how soon we'll be seeing AI tools building and generating AI games for game jams.
Well, we could ask ChatGPT to generate game jam name right now and see it very soon, but
Tell it to make the game jam and then make all of the games for the game jam. You could
yeah.
definitely have it at least give you the outline for it. They might not work, but
Yeah, I had ChatGPT generate names for ChatGPT, and we ended up with GPT Chatzilla. So yeah. But
I tried ChatGPT for fixing my code, which was a bad idea because for like simple chunks of code of like basic functions, you can use it, but mine was a little bit more complex and it was just like keep telling me use this code, and then I'm like pasting it and nothing works, and I'm like, you have to output this result, and it's like, I'm sorry, this is the code that you have to use, and then
Yeah.
it doesn't work.
yeah. And then
Were
it
you
says,
using-
oh, sorry, it was this part of the code that you
Yeah.
should use. And then you say it doesn't work. And, oh,
And I
sorry.
think AI at this point has to have some sort of overseeing person because it still makes a lot of mistakes. I know some people use it
Well,
for writing essays, which is probably the
yeah.
basic function, but for more complex stuff, it
I
still
think-
needs a lot of work.
People just don't really, not everyone understand like as a technology like behind ChatGPT and the limitations it has. So as many people say, it's just like advanced language model, so it tries to generate reply based on what you've said, and it has access to a large database and like it's a neural network, but it's sort of trying to answer your questions, not provide 100% accurate data. So for example, it can made up stuff or just switch around some things and so on. So it's not the most precise tool. So basically, maybe there would be different types of AI which are more suited for some particular tasks, but ChatGPT is more like for conversation, not for writing code. You could use it for writing code, but it's not necessarily like its primary purpose basically. So that's why it's tricky to use it this way. Because I've tried to use it more like what I thought it was supposed to be good at. I asked it to generate a spreadsheet about World War II era vehicles with like all the parameters, because like we had to do that like basically as a starting point for the in-game parameters for these units. Of course, it wouldn't be using like exactly all the real life parameters, but you know, that's a good start. So instead of doing this manually, you know, searching the internet and putting all of that into a spreadsheet, I asked ChatGPT to do that, and it started off really good. It produced a nice spreadsheet with all the parameters, and I didn't even list those, so it came up with almost the right set of parameters. I just need to ask for a few adjustments. But then, when I asked it to generate the final spreadsheet, it kept like changing the numbers in the spreadsheet every time I asked. So I could ask it 10 times, and it would send me 10 similar spreadsheets with different numbers in it. So, you know, and basically the thing is that some parameters are tricky, like you have various sources and some are not like 100% clear how they measure, and you know, so it was really confused, and it was like sending me different parameters every time, and sometimes it was like 10 times off the mark. And I was asking why is that, and he was like, oh sorry, here is like the correct parameter. And then I would ask him again, oh sorry, now this is the correct parameter. And so every time I asked, every time it would produce different outcome. So in the end I just dropped this idea. But yeah,
Yeah, it certainly does a great job at apologizing.
Yeah, so it's good, you know, it's good for philosophical conversation. Like if you feel too lonely and you have some free time, you know, you could just talk with ChatGPT if you have no one else to talk to. But otherwise,
Have you ever tried giving it code that wasn't working and just asking it why it wasn't
fix-
working?
Well, I personally don't work with code. I know the programmers on the team, they experimented with like various AIs and code. And I think there are not only ChatGPT, there are several tools like using AI to help you with coding. And they might be useful sometimes with some simple tasks, but overall, no one is like overly happy with how they work at the moment.
Interesting. What about you, Tamara? Have you done that? Like pasted in code that just wasn't working, or you had an error and just paste in the error and see what it does? That's where I found it to be really useful. Is why I'm asking, because like every now and
that's
then I'll look
actually
at code and like I don't see the error because I've looked at the code too many times, and I don't have another programmer sitting next to me that can just see the stupid error
Yeah.
sitting right on the screen. But ChatGPT just calls it out. I paste it in and it's like, oh, you forgot to check this if statement, or you did a greater than instead of a less than, dummy. And I'm like, oh, that,
Yeah. Well, it has its purposes, so you just need to figure out how to use it like correctly and where it's helpful and where it's not. And we'll probably see more usages in the future. Yeah, so, but right now, well, it's just, you know, it's one more useful tool in the hands of humanity, but yeah.
sorry,
I-
I cut you off,
I-
Tamara. What were you saying?
I don't think it works very well with code because, as I already mentioned, like I tried pasting not working code there, and it did a bad job at fixing it because there was like a little bit more complex than just some if statements. Those errors are actually solved by myself after some time of looking at the code. I usually get like errors with the code structure, so I can't really paste like a few scripts into ChatGPT and just ask it to solve the problem. So yeah, it didn't really do a good job with solving the problem that I had with my code.
Huh, interesting. I'll have to see how that, I guess, changes over the next few years or months or however
yeah.
long it is.
Maybe there would be some like code-specific AI that would be like
Yeah,
more
actually, that
advanced
would be
on
great.
helping. And I think they're already working on something like that, like you know, like introducing AI helper in like Visual Studio or like some other tools for programmers, basically. But we'll see how well that goes. Basically, it would still, I think, be like situational, but you know, like some some years ago we didn't have like autocorrection of text in like text editors, and now we cannot like imagine our life without it. So maybe in a few years we'll have some AI checking your code and calling out some mistakes, and you could just agree or disagree with it basically, but just a quick check to avoid
I'd
Yeah,
some
something
like
embedded
typos
in
and
the
stuff like that.
something embedded in the IDE. Like in Rider, you have these little like hints. I don't actually know if they are AI. I don't think they're AI, but it
No,
would be
no.
great to have such a tool that's already in the editor and it's like code specific. So it doesn't take all the existing tutorials on the internet, just takes like maybe basic principles of coding and helps you write better code.
Yeah, I'm seeing that already in a lot of the tooling I use. I'd say that I probably write a third of the code that I used to write. Now I just put in variable names and hit tab, and it just writes out
Oh
my
yeah.
method for me. It writes like the next 4 lines for me. Half the time, it just guesses what I was going to write, and I don't have to write it, which is nice.
What exactly are you using for that?
It's in Writer. I enabled GitHub Copilot in Writer, and it's
Oh,
kicking.
gotcha.
It's nice. It's awesome. I forgot I did it, and then I got the notification that my trial expired. I was like, oh, okay. I must have done that and forgotten about it. No wonder it's awesome. Cool. Well, if anybody in chat has questions, I guess we can take those real quick. I haven't seen anything else pop up though. Let's see. Did you guys see any questions in chat you wanted to jump onto? There was just the one about the game I couldn't play, which was just because I'm in this really weird ultra wide aspect ratio. If there aren't any questions, we'll probably wrap the stream up in a few minutes. I got to go open up the GameDev Guild Expo Hall in a few minutes and send out the email with
Once
the invite.
again, congratulations to all the Game Jam winners, and consider participating in the summer one. And great job on completing all the games, and you're awesome, and your games are awesome, and they were really fun to play. When I was asked to be part of the jury, I really wasn't sure what to expect, and some games were really pleasant surprises. I didn't expect such nice and polished games to be produced during the game jam, so great job on that, and good luck with development of these and other games in the future.
I totally agree. I was really impressed with how good the games were myself. I've seen a lot of game jams, and usually they're not anywhere near this level of like polished and quality, and actually being able to get through and finish most of them is very cool. Although I was never good enough to finish it. I don't think I beat any of them, but I had a lot of fun trying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also want to thank everyone who participated, and of course, the host of the game jam. So these are my friends, actually, Matt, Jim, and Seconary. So special shout out to you, and thank you all for judging it and organizing this live stream.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun with it. I wanted to make sure that everybody also. Hold on, let me pull up the link right here. Goes over to this page and subscribes. Oh, did it load? There we go. Bam. So go over, make sure that you're subscribed, and you've got the little bell on all. What was the most recent video you've done, by the way?
Actually, I haven't posted anything in a while because I was busy with university and all other stuff, but I'm planning to make a comeback. So subscribe.
Nice. And earlier you mentioned you're working on a new project. Can you tell everybody what that is? Because I think it's pretty cool and exciting.
Yeah, it's actually a little bit of an announcement because I haven't told anybody in my community.
Oh.
So the theme of my capstone project is actually a game that I've already worked on. It's my nightmare game, as you can see here, the video. It's a remake of Carcassonne. I'm adding multiplayer as per your request, so you're gonna expect a video about that soon, and also a playable version.
That is going to be awesome. Like I was saying, that's one of my wife's favorite board games she liked to play. Or one of the ones we played a lot at least. And I have a lot of fun with it. So it'd be interesting seeing it in a multiplayer setup. It's the one where you're building out, for anybody who hasn't played it, you build out cities, roads, and areas and try to get a ton of points. How are you doing the multiplayer, by the way, if you don't mind?
I'm doing
You
it
don't
with
have
Unity,
to spoil
actually.
it if it's a secret, but
No, not a secret, not at all. I'm doing it with Unity, and I'm actually so surprised with how easy it is to implement like all these different typical systems that you see in multiplayer. Like a lot of them were just packages that you have to connect. Like for example, the recent one system that I've done is a friend system, so you send out a code and then you can connect together and play together. And that was just one package, so just like that, it was done. But I did the multiplayer, like what data gets sent and everything else. So that part you still have to do by yourself.
Nice. Did you find it to be pretty easy to do with Unity system, or was it difficult, or have you done
Well,
more multiplayer before?
No, actually, I'm learning as I go. So it was a little bit of a challenge, like at first, trying to understand how multiplayer works. I spent quite some time figuring out why it doesn't work in my case. And it was actually like a really stupid mistake because I discovered that relay service doesn't work in WebGL. And I knew that, but then I didn't notice that my project was in WebGL. So I was just like banging my head, what's wrong? What's wrong? And it
So
was
you're
just
in
this-
editor mode and WebGL mode, though?
Yeah, it was just like that simple. So yeah,
wow.
it took some time figuring out, but it was like pretty easy, I'd say.
Wow. So I'm excited to see that. Do you have an ETA on when that's coming?
Well, since it's my capstone project, I have to be done in 2 weeks. But the like official video and playable version will be out probably like maybe in a month or so. I don't know. Depends
After the
on
project.
depends on how busy I'm gonna be with this whole university finishing thing.
Well, I'm, like I said, very excited to see it. I want to see what it looks like, and the multiplayer setup for it too, to hop in there and start playing. How many people are you supporting, by the way, on the multiplayer? Is it 2, 5, 4?
Well, the standard setup is 2 to 5 people. I haven't done like more than that, but you can actually like expand. I think I don't know, maybe even up to 10 players because there are a lot of cards in this game. So I'm pretty sure it's gonna be enough for even 10 players, but it's only 5 maximum at this point.
Okay, yeah, I think that's cool because people might think multiplayer and just think of 2, and 5 is it's about the same though, right? The process.
Yeah, actually, I still have to test it on more than 2 players because currently I only have like 2 projects open. So I just like develop in one and then I use parallel sync to bring up the other project, and then everything just gets tested.
Nice.
That hopefully is gonna work on more than 2 players.
Oh, I'm sure it will. Yeah, you just gotta do another parallel sync and get another window up, and another. You just gotta get lots and lots and lots of RAM.
Yeah.
That's when I upgraded my RAM when I was doing like 4 projects at once and networking. Like, okay, I've got to get more memory. I'm constantly hitting the hard disk now. That's very cool. So yes, if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure that you go over to your channel and subscribe right now. And then, Alexander, you got anything coming up you wanted to share real quick before we end?
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me and looking forward to the next game jam. Wish everyone good luck with that. Well, I don't know. I think I've already mentioned like what we are working on currently. So I don't have any big news for you to share like Tamara. And I wanted just to quickly comment that, since everyone here just subscribed to your channel, you're really obliged to, post a new video soon.
Yeah, it's an additional motivation.
Yeah, so thanks everyone for being here and for joining the live stream. And hopefully we'll see everyone some other time. So
Yeah, we'll have to do this again sometime soon. Jason's story just his internet just came up, so would have been nice to have him here as well. But for the next one, I think we could definitely do that. It'd be cool. Well, anyway, I wanted to say thanks everybody for coming out and joining us. Thank you to Tamara and Alexander for being here live and sharing these games and for judging in this competition. This is really awesome. And especially thanks to all of the people who actually built a game, submitted it, pushed it up there, and made something awesome for us all to play. And the winners were great, but all of the games were pretty cool. I had a lot of fun with a lot of them. So thanks to all of you. Thanks everybody watching.
by the way, sorry, just a quick remember that we'll soon have a free prologue up for our upcoming game, Strategic Mind, Spirit of Liberty prologue, and you can basically play it for free on Steam basically at the end of next month. I don't think the exact date is announced, but it would be pretty soon. So if you're interested, just keep your tabs on.
Do you have a link for that too? I'd love to share that and send it out in email with everybody.
Yeah, just give me a sec.
Cool. We'll get that out in front of everyone. Go try that out when it's available in the next couple weeks. Let's see. Anything else? Oh, right after this, I'm going to go open up the GameDev Guild Expo Hall. So if you're signed up for that, make sure that you get ready and come join us. I'll send out an email, but the link for joining the Expo Hall is inside of the conferences page. Just go to My Conferences and you should see it there. And then we'll be opening that shortly. And then here, let's pull this up, is the game and the link. Oh, this looks very cool. The Strategic Mind, Spirit of Liberty. This is the prologue. You said this was coming in, did you say 2 to 3 weeks maybe?
Maybe end of May, let's say end of May.
Okay. Ooh. All right, I've got to go add this to my wish list real quick. Okay, I've got to log in. Okay, I'll do that in a minute.
Not so easy. Yeah, thanks a lot for sharing it. And yeah, well, the full game will be also released this year, but this one is like the first few missions from it, and it's free. So if you're interested, just check it out. But it's like a hardcore strategy game, so like turn-based strategy game. So you have to love the genre to really enjoy it. But if you do, then I think you would have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, it is exactly my kind of game. So I'm gonna, as soon as I stop screen sharing, I'm gonna log in and wish list that real quick. Awesome. Well, thanks again, everybody, for joining us. I guess we'll end it here and see you. I guess I'll see almost everybody tomorrow. We'll be live with the GameDev Guild show, or I think we're gonna do a little stream live on YouTube and then be live on the page. If you haven't signed up for the free day yet, at least go sign up for that. There's a link down in the description somewhere, and I think I'll end it with the little promo video. So bye everybody. Thanks again for joining us.
Bye.
Guild Conference is right around the corner, starting on May 1st. It's a 5-day conference that offers everything an in-person conference does. We have dozens of sessions on a variety of actionable topics you can use in your own projects. Many of the Game Dev Show experts will be there, along with tons of other speakers like John Riccatello, the CEO of Unity, Rick from GameDev TV, Thomas Brush, Turbo Makes Games, Chris Lucian, Jabrils, and many more. We also have a full virtual expo hall for you to connect with and network with all the other attendees, speakers, and sponsors. In addition to our Pro Pass, which includes over $2,000 of free bonuses, and our Student Pass, which gives you access to all of the sessions, we've just announced a completely free one-day pass, which gives you access to all of the sessions on the first day. So go check it out, grab your free pass, and join us on May 1st by clicking the link in the description.